Hi there guys, I'm Jesse Bryan, James Cropper, and welcome to Your Potential, channel dedicated towards your mental health, physical well-being, and your spiritual growth. Today I've been asked a question, but not just today, but quite a lot of the time I keep being asked, Ryan, why are you constantly changing your look when it comes to your beards or when it comes to your hairstyles? There is quite a spiritual significance behind my actions. And it's not something that's relatively new. I started doing it during a phase of my life where I was growing quite a bit spiritually on a conscious level. That's going to make sense in a second. Now, myself, and I'm sure others out there throughout their entire lives, have been many other versions of themselves. And what I mean by that is maybe perhaps your look has changed. Your vocalization, how you're pronunciating your words, your accents, your many accents, how you respond to people, how you conduct conversations, all of that stuff when it comes to you learning about how to communicate to people and how to present yourself. It's changed, right? To some degree, it all changes. And the reason as to why they change is simple. It's because we're trying to figure out how to communicate to people throughout the early stages of our lives. This is often from the age of 8, so always from that age of 8 up until 16 to 17. You tend to shake out of those characteristics and you become more of yourself. The kind of person you were before you started playing with your character, your ego in a sense. And if you want more information on what an ego actually is, the illusionary aspect of an ego, then you can check out my video on just that. It's the illusions of the ego. I'll put an annotation somewhere or I'll put it in the description below. We don't only communicate in these ways because we think that we have to, as a way of, okay, this is how the world works. This person's acting this way, so that person over there, I'm going to copy how they're communicating within my life when I interact with people because that seems to be how we're supposed to do it here on Earth. That's not the only reason, okay? The other reason is because when we see someone smile, when we see someone light up, when we see someone using specific languages that makes them feel good, we will tend to reflect that back at them because it's, well, that's good manners in retrospect, right? That is what makes a conversation worthwhile, when you feel like you can vibe with a person. But sometimes it becomes a habit. We're not supposed to always do it within every conversation. Okay? And when it comes to me cutting my hair or changing my hair, I would find myself often falling into those habits of speaking in tongues in specific ways that I was speaking the last time I had cornrows or I cut my beard a certain way. Having a haircut which is changing the way that you're speaking or conducting yourself is just the tip of the iceberg. It gets more complex. The reason as to why it gets more complex is because it deals with sight. And obviously I'm looking at myself and looking at the shapes of my beard is triggering a past mindset and it's kind of bleeding in. But in regards to past mindsets and in regards to sight itself, you can actually see other things in your environment which trigger old patterns of behavior. Say for example, there's this kid called Bill in school and he's being bullied quite a lot. Okay, he gets bullied at home. Bill feels very weak. His dad's pointing out all these insecurities and if not, he's reinforcing ones that weren't already there, which then makes Bill believe that he is less than something which he otherwise wouldn't have been able to even comprehend. Maybe now he thinks he's less manly, whereas in his mind, who cares about being manly? He's 14, you see. And his dad is weaving in all these insecurities over and over again and bullying Bill. But then Bill goes to school and Bill sees a new guy who's looking very timid, looking very weak, and is reminding Bill of everything that he doesn't like about himself, which, by the way, wasn't even true in the first place. It was something that was projected into his head by his dad. Yeah. So now Bill instantly doesn't like this new kid. Bill starts wailing on him, swearing at him. Bill thinks that in order to kill the weakness inside of him, he has to first kill it outside of himself. Now you're getting somebody who's bullying somebody else in a school environment. Yeah. In Bill's mind, this makes perfect sense. It's the only way in which he's going to kill this weakness. And because it makes so much sense, it's really ingrained into his belief systems and that's dictating his actions. Now, imagine if Bill's mum sees what he's doing. She's upset, she's crying. Bill all of a sudden feels like crap. He wants to change really fast. I'm talking radical action. He just completely denies this aspect of himself that wants to wail on this new kid. So he forces himself to change rather than realizing that he can't kill a part of himself by beating up somebody else. He doesn't go through that kind of dynamic processes of thought through contemplative thinking, otherwise known as meditation. So at the back of his mind, it's still there. Now, scoot along 4 years down the line. Bill's sister is getting married. She's engaged to a guy. This guy, at their wedding, looks very timid, looks very weak. He's nervous. He's about to proclaim his love for somebody in front of his family and another family. Bill sees this in his sister's fiancée. And all of a sudden, he doesn't like him. He rubs him the wrong way. He doesn't quite know why, but he doesn't like him all of a sudden. You know? And then after they're married, they move on to the after party. And then Bill walks up to the husband and accidentally slips. He passive-aggressively, indirectly insults him in front of his face. Now, that energy came forth because of belief system. Yeah. He's trying to still advertently, subconsciously, kill something that looks like a weakness that reminds him of himself as a kid. Now, the word schizophrenia, if you split it apart, the first part means schizen in German. The last bit means phrenia, schizophrenia, schizophrenic. And what this means is split mind. Whenever you're in resistance to anything within your mind, you cause a split, a fracture. That part of you doesn't just disappear. In Bill's case, it split because he was trying to move on too fast. He denied that negative aspect of himself, or better put, that negative way of being that he thought was necessary at the time to process his guilt and his shame from his interaction with his father. And in by doing so, he ended up throwing it on the back burner. And if you keep doing this over and over again, just like Bill, what happens is these many aspects of your mind compress, they compile, then later on down your life, you'll have what's known as a midlife crisis. Not only that, but every time you split and chip away at your mind, you're losing more and more consciousness. So within this spiritual community, within spirituality as a whole, it's all about becoming one with yourself. And then by doing so, you end up gaining lost aspects of yourself, which then leads into you becoming more and more aware because you're becoming more and more conscious, more and more of you see. So when it comes to shadow integration, it's always important to really look at these different parts of yourselves, these different sides of yourselves. Somebody actually mentioned it to me in a consultation I was doing, and she said, oh, that sounds very much like soul retrieval, where you go back into your past lives and you retrieve lost aspects of your soul. Now, the type of person I am is that I'm the type of being that can read between the lines. I can read many different religious texts, including the kind of religion that spirituality has turned into. And I can hear and identify very specific words that come into play when it comes to people trying to put a point across. And the way that she told me it very much sounded like not past lives, as in lifetimes after lifetimes reincarnation cycle, but it lined up with what I was doing in regards to what could be seen as past lives in relation to you living one life in this realm. If you're like 40, you've probably been 4 different kinds of people. Those aspects of yourself I would call an individual life. Yeah, your soul is the same all the way through, but your character is completely different. Of course, there's an extent as to how much you can physically change, but there's nothing changing your hair or wearing a different set of clothes can clear up. I changed my hair because I noticed at one point in my life that every time I would switch to a style, I would shift into an old way of thinking, acting, and being. It would ruin my relationships, friendships, family relationships, my dynamic with new people, because I would end up shifting into something that they have recognized within me within the past and probably put some distance between us, or that looks new, familiar. Who is this Ryan? Because he's not the same kind of guy that I met the first time around, or because he changed his hairstyle. So I would deliberately change my hair, sit in that kind of feeling, that vibe, and I'd give myself some space, some time to do a memory regression and really sit in that memory. I wouldn't try to change the memory. That never works. But I allow the memory to happen. I take full responsibility for the fact that at that time I thought it was necessary to act or conduct myself in a certain way. And by taking full responsibility of my actions and my thought process, that's like an instant integration. You're pretty much halfway there. Now, at this point, most people lose it because they're afraid of coming out of the meditations and losing who they are to who they used to be. But as long as you can sit in who you was, be that you, and change your thought process, change your reasoning behind why you did that thing, why you thought it was acceptable, then when you wake up out of that meditation, you won't find yourself being lost to another aspect of yourself. You will be it, yes. And you'll be you. You'll be both of you. At the same time, essentially, you'll just be you. And it feels very weird when that happens, because everything kind of slots into place. So I'd go through a memory regression. I'll take full responsibility for my actions. And then I would compare the rest of my life from that point within my past leading up until whenever I was doing that meditation to fix the problem. And I would say to myself, okay, I acted one way because I thought it was going to make my interactions with people, maybe I was swearing, better down the line. Did that really happen? I'm saying this to myself whilst I'm in the memory. Did that really happen? Then I'll look into my future, which had already happened, and I think to myself, you know what? No, it didn't. Come to think about it, acting this way never worked out for the better. So now I'm not going to do it anymore. Yeah? I'm not just saying that to try and convince myself. I'm using my experience here on Earth to really compare what I thought would be good for me to what actually happened. Then I end up automatically dropping that idea. Maybe to, in Bill's case, beat on people who reminded them of a weakness. Or in a case that I actually had, it was swearing. I thought, is it really a good idea to keep swearing in every new interaction that I'm going to have? No, not really. I did it at that point in time because I knew that person liked it. I was mirroring them. That came from them, not me. So I'm going to drop it. And what happens is when you change your mind, when you get to essentially, change your mind again, for the first time though, it feels like the first time, you pick up any other behavior that you were using to conduct your life before you ended up picking up or experimenting with a new kind of behavior. And then you might find that how you used to do things still doesn't work. So, you learn a lot growing up. Like I said, you become many different versions of yourself. All you got to do is erase that other version. You don't erase it by being in resistance to it. That'll just cause more of a split inside of your mind. And the reason, going back to the reason as to why I cut my hair so often, is because honestly, I started deconditioning myself from making wrong choices within my life. Choices of which used to make me judge myself, who I used to be. I used to not really like the character I was, but I was just playing that character because I was fumbling throughout life, trying to ground myself in the dynamics of this social society. I'm not gonna be upset at making the wrong choice because the soul doesn't know the difference between good or bad. That's why kids slap each other, when they're children, and scream and throw things and break things because they need to be taught the difference between good and bad. It's just the way it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a bad person. If anything, it makes you nothing at all. It's something we learn. Yeah, it was fun. I remember I did one meditation and I synced up at least 4 different versions of myself simply by not being in resistance and changing my mind, which again felt like the first time because I was in that memory. So yeah, this has been my video as to why I change my hair so often. Oh, it's Christmas soon. Matter of fact, today is the 1st of December that I'm shooting this video. A subscriber recently kind of brought to my awareness of the fact that within the last promo video on my website, ryancropper.com, by the manifestation course, the course where I teach you guys, how to shift your mindset and it is what it is, manifestation course, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mentioned as to how I was doing a deal. I was going to cut the price on that online course. And, it's in a video. And the thing about videos is they tend to isolate a moment in time, which is going to be right at least once a year. So it's December, and I've decided to carry on that Christmas promo because she had seen it and thought that it applied to this year as well. And I thought to myself, that's a pretty good idea. So I decided to do it again. I not only cut the price of my manifestation course in half, but I decided to go a bit further with this. And I deducted the price of my astral projection course along with sessions with me. You can find out what those are by heading over to ryancropper.com, or you can check out in the description below because I will leave the link to the ego video. There's an ego video as to how I explain as to how the ego doesn't actually exist. It's an illusion, a misunderstanding of what's going on to those who aren't fully aware as to how people are conducting themselves. I'll leave that link in the description below alongside my website. And I'll speak to you pretty soon. Peace. I forgot to mention, the reason as to why you've seen me have so many different kinds of hairstyles is because I started the deconditioning process during the beginning of my YouTube phase up until a certain point. Then I got to the point where I was able just to be myself, no matter what hairstyle I had or what beard shape I had. I was essentially free to be myself without any kind of influence at all. Yeah.